What's going on, Show Nation? It's a movie with Movie Gaming TV, and in today's video, I just kind of wanted to read this hitting and pitching extended Q&A that got dropped on St. Patrick's Day a couple days ago. Just gonna give you my thoughts on it, and if you haven't read it, we're gonna go ahead and read it in this video. It was mentioned at the end of the stream that the improvement / work went into bunting this year. Can you elaborate as to what improvements / changes were implemented this year? We have made improvements to sacrifice and drag bunt specifically. Repeated drag bunt attempts become less effective as the defense becomes more alert and you lose the surprise factor. This sounds fantastic. So basically, back in about the MLB 16 days, there used to be people would just bunt a lot. Like, people would build their entire team around bunting, just to, you know, pretty much just to grieve, and it wasn't a lot of fun. You could set your defense to stop it, but the bunts were out of control. It was so easy to be safe on a bunt. So what they did in MLB 17 was they drastically switched it the other way, so that bunting was just, if you wanted to bunt online, good luck. They went the other way. So this, and now in 21 years later here, I think this is like the happy medium of what bunting should be. You can bunt for a base hit here and there with a guy that can bunt really well, but if you start spamming it, it's just going to it's not going to be as effective, and that's really a good balance, I think, for bunting. How do the control and BB per 9 attributes affect the par, and how easy / difficult perfect input is to achieve? The two most important attributes that influence pitch accuracy and thus par are BB per 9 and the individual pitch accuracy for the selected pitch. The most accurate pitchers will have a high BB per 9 and high control for that selected pitch. It's good to note that generally the average fastballs are more accurate than other pitch types. So some stuff to break down here. Now, when you look at a card, and you look at the attributes of a card, it has a control rating, okay? But that was basically what it was, is it took all of the pitches that a pitcher had, it took all of those like control. So let's say just for example, you had a fastball, slider, changeup, curveball. It would average, to get that control rating, it would take an average of the control on each of those pitches. But in MLB The Show 21, we're actually going to have on the cards themselves, and this is something that a lot of us requested, and now we're actually going to have it in the game, and it's going to be sweet. So when you look at a player's attributes now, you're going to be able to see how much control they have on a fastball, how much they have on their slider, how much they have on their changeup, and how much they have on their knuckle curve. There were some sites in the past that you could go to that would look into the data of the game somehow, and were able to determine what those numbers were. So we were able to go off of that. But now it's actually going to just be on the card, so it's going to be a lot easier to get that. And so those are the two things that are going to affect it. There's the BB per 9, and then how much control they have on the actual pitch, and then also, you know, it's going to come down to confidence that the pitcher has, and each pitch has its own pitch confidence as well. So if you've been having a lot of success versus your opponent using your slider for whatever reason, that pitch increases in confidence. So that's another factor that goes into it. But just something that makes it even more fun and more dynamic as we play. And I'm really looking forward to this in the new game. So does the change to check swings being used only on user input apply to directional batting as well, since directional otherwise relies on attributes as well as user input? Check swings are user driven on all hitting interfaces. As far as the main hitting engine goes, you determine the timing of your swing with directional. Now, one thing I see is a lot of people complaining when people use directional, and honestly, you should never complain when someone uses directional, because it's so much harder for them to, all they're doing is they're just affecting their timing, and they're relying on the game to, you know, move the PCI for them, so to speak. And that's not going to produce consistent results over a 9-inning game. It's much better for you to use zone hitting and actually move the zone yourself. You're going to plateau using directional because you have too much RNG. So if you I just don't, if someone wants to use directional against you, first of all, I don't know how you're going to be able to see that other than you almost have to ask them just because of how the swing feedback works, unless they do put the PCI feedback in MLB The Show 21. But you really shouldn't be too worried about it. Most likely you're going to out hit them with your ability to zone hit, because you're going to be able to influence the RNG with your PCI movement and your timing. And then when them just relying on timing, it shouldn't be that as good. But overall, I like what they've done with the check swings. I think, speaking to someone who can be a check swing bandit, I can time my check swings very, very well. This is better because you shouldn't be able to get away with so many check swings. And check swings are a part of the game, but they needed to shift the balance of it to the user input and get away from like someone being way out in front and just relying on the discipline of the card, especially when we get later on in the year and these cards have so much discipline because they're all-time greats in Diamond Dynasty. It's going to be a good change, I think. Practice team is great, but is it all current MLB teams, or can you play against legends available in Diamond Dynasty? We have 3 legend teams available for you to choose from when entering practice mode. So it sounds like we won't have a practice mode in Diamond Dynasty itself, just by this kind of statement that I'm seeing from them, which is something I'd like to have, where I could take my Diamond Dynasty team and I could practice with them. I guess you could always still go against play versus CPU, but with how the practice is going to work about, having inside pitches that you can go after, specifically, like if you want to work with your right-handed hitter against right-handed pitching and you want all inside pitches to try to work on pulling the ball, which is probably like the number one thing that once you get that ability down, you're going to be that's going to improve your hitting more than anything. Because now that's the hardest pitch to time, is a fast pitch on the inside, because you got to use, that's going to take like the most natural reaction time and the most practice of picking up the ball, recognizing the pitch, and then turning and burning on it. So I'd like to have that available in Diamond Dynasty, but you can, as we go through the year, players will get updated to the rosters. You can make your own custom rosters, and you can kind of go into practice mode that way. So I think, as much as I'd like to have the mode in Diamond Dynasty in the future, it's not that big of a deal if we just have to do what we've had to do in the past and kind of make our own custom rosters to be able to practice with. But you will be able to practice with the Legends. What other pitching modes will be allowed in competitive besides pinpoint, pitching, meter, and analog? If so, are the first 3 the only ones that will have the par feature? Par feature is available for pinpoint, meter, and analog pitching. Par is inherent in the pulse pitching mechanic and is displayed when the pulse circle is at its smallest point. So if you like to use pulse, you get it at the smallest point. Basically, you'll still have some par. I guess Classic won't have par, but I don't really think a lot of people that are going to be using Classic are going to be in super sweaty mode online. Classic, all you do is you move the pitch to where you want it to go and you hit X. There's nothing, there's no meter, there's no analog, there's no pinpoint, there's not even pulse. It's just like you just place the pitch where you want it to go. And it's mostly something that if you want to kind of cruise through a game or you want to play in a real casual style, you use Classic. But the rest of them will have par. All right, so this goes more into pinpoint pitching. And I don't know, pinpoint pitching is going to be a main thing this year. And this is an explanation of how to use it. And I still haven't decided for myself if I'm going to use pinpoint pitching or if I'm going to use analog pitching when I play and try to move up the leaderboards and try to have fun online and all that kind of stuff. I know pinpoint is going to be the most accurate. I know some people do love it. I know some people that some of the feedback I got. I did a poll asking what people are going to do, and it's still kind of like, it seemed like about a third of the people were going to use pinpoint, a third of the people are going to use analog, a third of the people are going to use meter, and then we had a small percentage that are still going to use pulse. I still haven't decided if I'm going to use the pinpoint. I know it's going to be the most I know it's going to be the best, but I just don't know if I'm going to be that inaccurate using using analog pitching. So this is just their guide on how to use it. The first thing you're going to notice is that as you aim your pitch, the arrow in the circle on the bottom move in relation to the ball placement in the zone. This location will be important when finishing your pitching motion. Next, you'll see the pitch preview inside the interface. Each pitch type has a distinct motion that needs to be performed at the same speed as the preview. Your performance executing this input is known as the gesture rating. After you begin your motion, you will see a timing mechanic pop up at the 12 o'clock position where all pitches will finish. The gears will rotate and begin to close in on one another in an effort to help you keep the right pace when performing your gesture. The ideal timing is when the rings overlap or it gives the appearance of just one ring. You may notice that there is some dynamically colored feedback along your path that will help keep you on your pace. Green is good, yellow means slow down, red is failing. There will be another timing mechanic. There'll be another timing mechanic that looks exactly like the one at the 12 o'clock position that is now in place of where you aimed your pitch in the first step. This mechanic here will help you time your release along with the pitcher's motion. The ideal timing is when the rings overlap or it gives the appearance of just one ring. You may have noticed some variability in timing, which comes down from the distinct motion that each pitcher has. Some require you to wait longer, some shorter. As part of your final release downstroke, you must aim left to right depending on the target of your pitch. This is rated as direction accuracy. So we're going to be able to practice this a lot, and I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to get it down. I think some people are going to be amazing with it, and I think some people are going to struggle with it. And I just don't know if analog kind of stays the way it has. I feel like I can pitch still really well with analog. And what I really don't want to have happen is like I'm in a pressure situation using pinpoint and I just leave one right over the middle of the plate. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I absolutely love that it's in the game, and it's going to be it's a great thing to have in the game. I'm just personally, my personal ability to use analog, I feel like I can use it very well, hit the line in the hoop very well. So it's going to be one of those things that, you know, it's a really good direction to take things in. I'm very interested to see how it's going to play out throughout the year. Maybe I'm going to have to watch more people use it or practice it myself. I think like if you have the time this year to make a ball player and you're going to make a pitcher, and you can go through all the grind of the road of the show to like get them up to a high overall or what have you, that's probably the best way to that's like the time that you want to use the pinpoint pitching, I think, and just kind of take your lumps doing that. The reason I say that is you'll probably be able to get it down, try different pitches. You can try a lot of different motions on that player, and then you're practicing while still building up to an end goal. So you're getting like, you know, attributes building on your player, and you're getting like XP, and you're getting stubs and all that kind of stuff while still practicing it rather than going into practice mode. I think that's probably like the best strategy for that, but it's going to be interesting this year. All right, casual mode for DD is a discount quest play versus CBU, or can we please use it for moments and showdowns as well? The casual gameplay style can also be used in custom leagues, so I guess you can do it or all that, and you can also use it in custom leagues. I guess you can use it for moments and showdowns. I'm not sure exactly how they answer that question. What affects the timing windows and what causes them to change so frequently from pitch to pitch? First and foremost, timing windows vary depending on the location of the pitch and the pitch type. You won't want to swing at the same time on an inside fastball as you would on one away. Players in real life and in our game have hit tendencies that can be viewed on each player card. Some are great at pulling the ball, some use the entire field well, and others are good at going the other way. For example, a pull hitter in MLB The Show would have a slightly increased timing window on early swings and a slightly decreased timing window for late swings, which can help when trying to turn on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. So if you've followed my channel for a while, you know I've done some videos on this in the past. When I've asked the development team, you know, how do I increase my timing window? How do I get the maximum timing window? And so if you look at some of the cards in the game, like Fernando Tatis Jr. or Mike Trout or King Griffey Jr., a lot of them have the extreme pull. That's what's on their player card. You know, then I think of like some more of the balance hitters like Rogers Hornsby or Mickey Mantle. And they kind of have like a somewhat of a timing window that's more across the board. I think there's a lot of times if you had an extreme pull hitter, while we see a lot of like the late side of good, it doesn't have as much power, and why you would see a lot of early home runs. especially with a pull hitter. It just has to do with that timing window. So if you want to maximize, if you're a guy a pretty quick swing, maybe look for more players that have more of that extreme pull. If you got more of a balanced approach, look for more balanced hitters. And there's not too many push hitters in the game. The only really dominant one is like Jimmy Fox. He actually has like a push hitter, and that most of them have either balanced or they have extreme pull if it's a really good card. But just keep that in mind. And you always want to have like a quick swing, really, honestly, anyways. But then also keep in mind, just because you got that early extreme pull hitter, that doesn't mean you want to you still want to be a little bit late on a pitch on the outside to drive it the other way with power. But it's just one thing to keep in mind. I hope this whole thing makes sense, but that's how you kind of increase your timing window. Why does meter have a smaller par circle than analog? Analog is arguably harder. Now, this is a question I asked in one of my videos here leading up to MLB The Show 21, so I was very interested in this answer. And looking at my Twitter page, I did see Seabrev talk a little bit about this, and so I'll explain this here. And I think what he says is completely on point. And this is why meter has a smaller circle than analog. So meter has a smaller par than analog due to the huge asymmetry between underthrows and overthrows and timing. You're trying to hit a perfect accuracy without waiting so long that you throw it into the dirt. With analog, there's also a timing element that controls the over and underthrows, but it's not as extreme like the meter. So basically, it's a lot easier to hit that line before you bring it up to the hoop with analog than it is to hit the line with a meter. So, I mean, it's real easy to hit that line. Just move, you don't have to move the stick straight down. You can move it to the side, but most of the time you're almost going to always hit that line. With meter, it's more difficult to hit that line consistently. I actually think it's kind of pretty difficult to hit that consistently. So if you do, you get rewarded more, but it's not necessarily, it's got to be a smaller par circle because it's difficult to hit that meter line like perfect every single time compared to analog, which you can literally almost do it every single time. So if you hit it perfectly, yeah, the meter will be a little bit more accurate, but let's say you throw 100 pitches, you're probably going to be hitting the line with the analog a lot more consistently than you would with the meter. So to balance that out, they make it a little bit easier, or they give a little bit less of a par radius for the meter. Will vision matter this year, or will it not be as important like it was in MLB The Show 20? Vision is one of the most integral attributes for a hitter in the show, as the higher vision attribute a player has, the better they are at reducing swings and misses as well as strikeouts. So one thing that doesn't get talked about enough with vision, and I've talked about this a lot the past year, is not only does vision increases your timing window. So that's a good thing. The more vision you have, like if you look at your PCI, it's like a built-in of vision and it's a built-in of your contact. And you don't want to have like a bunch of hitters that don't have a lot of vision. If you're playing on like All-Star or something like that, you're kind of like a BR type of warrior. Vision is not going to be as important, but once you get to Hall of Fame, that's like the dividing line of where vision actually does matter, and you will strike out a lot more. Plus, you want players with higher vision because you just have a bigger timing window. And increasing your timing window is going to lead to more hits in the gap and lead to more home runs. So it's definitely better to have more vision than to have less. Maybe like 80 to 90 is like legit. I know when I was building my team to play in the CCL, the Creators League, when I was labbing out my team, I eventually wanted to get more players that had like above 70. Like above 70 was kind of the number I was looking for to have on my team. Players like Silver Trey Mancini and stuff like that. So I was not having as much success with a player like Miguel Sano or something like that on Hall of Fame. So I feel like their answer is on point there. Like vision definitely does matter for those two things, and it increases the timing window. At the end of the stream, base running was mentioned as being improved but not expanded upon. Can you elaborate as to what changed, improved in terms of base running? Did the team address community issues with auto base running? We've made improvements specifically when users had multiple runners on base and would attempt to advance our runners rather than targeting, as well as improvements to the way the CPU handles base running duties. For example, a runner was coming home to score from second on a base hit to the outfield where the ball is cut off by the relay man. He already sent your batter on his way to second thinking the throw was going home, and now recognizing you need to send him back to first or he'll be out. Previously, if you hit the R1 to send the runner between first and second back to first, the runner heading home would also retreat back to third, taking an easy run away from you. That will no longer be the case. So it's improved the AI of the runner going home. If you got a guy that's going home and they're going to be safe, is what this is saying, it's gonna know to send that you want to send him home and not send him back to third base. I still recommend that you learn to individually base run. It's just one thing. It just puts more control in your hands when you're individually selecting the runners. I've got some base running tutorials on my channel. Just type in like base running tips, MLB The Show. You should be able to find them. And they'll teach you how to individually base run. They'll teach you how to tag up. They'll explain the what's it called? Like maybe like the icon interface up in the top right of the screen with the base running. But this should give you, if you're kind of like relying more on the bumpers, this should give you some more. It's like smarter AI for what you would want to do, because obviously if you're trying to send the guy back to first and you got a sure run at home, like you don't want to be sending that guy back to third. They just want to. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not what you're trying to do. So they're trying to improve stuff like that. I think that's something that you can use from time to time. But if you really want to, have more control, just try to individually base run. But hopefully, this is a good thing. You don't want people getting out. Like if you're deciding in your brain, right, like what you want to do, and you get caught in a situation that's explained like this, where your guy's going back to third. That's not a good thing, because you're hitting the wrong buttons, but you're making the right decision. Like mentally, they want to make it so that it's a little like you don't have to input as much necessarily to do what you're thinking that you want to do from like a coaching perspective. Has a simulation mode and any additional gameplay bouncing to make it more sim than in past years. We're always striving to develop the best baseball sim out there, and just like previous years, we use data from the MLB and internal telemetry data to keep pushing it forward. What is internal telemetry data? Is like data that they get from looking at tons of swings in the video game, and like tons of data that they have internally in the video game. So they're trying to they always try to make it more sim. They like that. So they're looking at, and I feel like even every single year, like we got the catcher pot time in the fielding video that I have, and talking about that. They love the actual stuff that they get from the MLB, and then kind of meshing that all together to make it a good sim. So if you like franchise, they should make it nice in that regard. How exactly do the casual sim and competitive styles modify the game differently, and what makes them unique? I don't think we have to go over this too much, just only because we've gone over this a lot. So I'm just gonna go quickly. I mean, casual is just, if you're just picking up the game for the first time, it's going to make it really easy for you to learn the game. Simulation is going to be best for like the franchise experience, where you want all of the attributes to really truly matter the most. Then competitive, like what's going to matter the most is the user input. That's going to be what's focused on the most. So they're going to try to, like, there's no wind, the personalized umps are gone, stuff like that. And they, if you're putting good swings on it, you're going to get, quote unquote, rewarded more often, and bad input worse. So those are kind of how those are going to work. Had the par always been the largest, least accurate on analog pitching, or was that changed this year to differentiate it from pinpoint pitching? Yes, meter had been more accurate than analog. It was not changed to differentiate it from pinpoint. And then we discussed like why that is earlier too. Are you doing away with discipline rating? If not, what does the rating do, since it no longer for check swing? Discipline is still a rating. Increasing walks and directly influences swing decisions during fast forward and simming. High discipline makes check swings easier to execute and affects the rate of automatically dodging near hit by missed pitches, preventing you from swinging at them. So if you're doing if you're simulating a franchise, that discipline is still going to come into effect. It's just not going to be like a user thing. And I feel like the automatically dodging near hit pitches has been tuned down the last couple of years. It used to be really, really bad. Well, not bad. It used to just be like they would almost always automatically dodge out of the way. So the discipline is still going to affect that. But that actually can be really, it can bail you out pretty well. I always kind of wonder to myself, like, did they swing on one of my pitches on the inside because I've sequenced my pitch together so well, or I will swing on accident and I'll dodge at the same time. And basically they just get out of the way automatically for you instead of making you swing. So it's gotten to, I think it's at a good balance point now where you still dodge and you can get that save that you need on offense at times, and on when you're pitching, I know it stings a little bit, but most of the time they aren't dodging nearly as much. So I think it's good where it's at. If the modes casual, sim, competitive are separate, why was it necessary to change the check swing for simulation? I can understand for competitive and inflated DD ratings, but simulation should remain ratings based. Whenever possible, we don't do things so differently that what you learn doesn't apply to the next difficulty or gameplay style. So when accounting for discipline and check swings, we felt that removing it from the equation and putting the result in the user's hands will be a more rewarding experience. Discipline is still a factor during fast forwards or sim in the game. So they basically think it's going to be, they want to take it out. They don't feel like it's going to be something that when you play, they think it's, they don't want the discipline to bail you out as much still, and they think that the discipline was bailing you out so much that it was taken away from the actual simulation. So that's an interesting philosophy. I think I'm good with it. I honestly think that's a good thing. It should make your game more realistic. Are you going to nerf sinkers and cutters? Having reviewed feedback and telemetry from MLB The Show 20, we feel confident with how each pitch type will be functioning at release. That said, we are always trying to be mindful of community sentiment and are always willing to make adjustments where we and the community feel it's needed most. So why would someone ask, are you going to nerf sinkers and cutters? Well, sinkers and cutters outside of the knuckleball, which is pretty much at this point it's non-existent, and I'm actually very happy that it's mostly non-existent. It's like there's a couple common cards here and there that have the knuckleball, but for the most part, because you don't have to go back very far, even like MLB The Show 17, where we used to have, like, if you were building out like a top tier rotation where you had like the quote unquote best pitchers in your rotation on like a super stacked team, you would have had Tiance, you would have had Phil Niekro, you would have had R.A. Dickey. 3 knuckleballers out of your 5 starting pitchers were all knuckleballers. And the knuckleball is just, it's really, really difficult to hit. Like, it doesn't make for a lot of fun. So I'm glad that it's been kind of removed from Diamond Dynasty. You can still use Phil Niekro, like, if you want to play with them offline, but I'm glad that they took that out. So with that said, the knuckleball being the best pitch, sinkers and cutters are your next best pitches. Why are they the next best pitches? Well, like we talked about earlier, the hardest thing to do is, left on left, right on right, turn and burn on an inside pitch. Just because it relies on you to pick up the ball the quickest, and it relies on you to get your PCI on it quickly and turn and react faster. It doesn't matter if you're better or worse at doing it. It's just like that's just how physics work. So the sinker is a pitch that looks like a fastball, and some of them, maybe some of them go at 92 up to 95. If you have outlier in your sinker, it can go up to like 98, 100-ish. And the sinker and the cutter, they both tunnel together really well. What is pitch tunneling? So let's say I have a pitch. Let's just say we're aiming like a sinker and a cutter will go the same. It'll come out of the hand looking pretty much the same. It'll go on the same trajectory, and then the sinker, let's just go right on right for our example. So right on right, the sinker is going to look like it's going down the middle, and then it's going to break in on your hands as a righty, and it's going to break your bat. And then the cutter is going to be tunneled in that same fashion. It's going to look like it's going like down the middle, and it's going to cut the opposite way. So it's going to cut away from you. So they kind of are the perfect pitches to tunnel with each other, the sinkers and the cutters. They can be really, really effective. And so I guess people would like to see them more nerfed because they're so effective, especially like up and in sinkers. I mean, most sinkers you're going to throw like lower on the ground to try to get ground balls and stuff like that. So a lot of people will throw that high and inside sinker. I think for me, that's probably the most difficult pitch to hit, high and inside sinker. The cutter can be super effective, and just what ends up happening is a lot of the pitchers that people want to choose end up being sinkers and cutters. I feel like they're good to keep in the game how they are right now, and I understand people wanting to nerf them, but since we got outlier, I think you can either use like a sinker and cutter type of pitcher, or you can use I think you can really use like pitchers that have like the outlier, like we saw with like Prestige Jacob deGrom later on. You know, he has a two-seam fastball, which is kind of like a sinker, but I didn't see a lot of people using that a ton. They just more use like the overpowering fastball, use the slider for horizontal movement, use the changeup, and use the curveball. But I don't know, sinkers and cutters are definitely like the best pitches to use, just because they combo so well, and you want hard horizontal movement. So sinkers, cutters, sliders are always really great. Fastballs, I mean, if you get the timing on it, it's not going to move too much. It's kind of easy to put the PCI on it and all that kind of stuff. But what do you think about nerfing sinkers and cutters? I think they're good, but I'm just curious what you think. Well, that's pretty much this entire video. I don't know how it went 31 minutes. I'm just about to upload it, and I hope you have a great day. I can't wait for MLB The Show 21. I've been playing some MLB The Show 20. I feel good about where my game's at. I'm just ready to start the new game. So if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and have a great one. Peace.